Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode where you get to ask us your questions. And we have received 3 questions. And the first one is, should you go into business with a family member, i.e. merge funds together in order to buy a property? And the second part to that is, what's the best way to do so? So should you go into business with your family?
Well, it's not a straightforward yes or no. Probably, regardless of the fact whether they're family or not, there are 3 things you want to consider first. I guess compatibility being the first one. Can you actually work with the person? And then contribution. What can you actually do? Are you sort of both very similar? Are you both very good at finances, but actually nobody's good at buying property? You obviously need to think about that. Then, what do you want to do long term? Are you united in that? Do you want to buy properties and hold them? Do you want to sell properties? Do you want to go out and find properties for other people? What is your plan? You might be able to work together, you might have the right sort of skill set, but want to do something completely different. And in that case, it's not going to work, family member or not.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And so then, if you would say, well, okay, regardless of whether it's family or not, we need those three components. What would you say was the best way to do it? What would you say? If they say, okay, we are compatible, we've got things that we can contribute, and we've both got a long-term agreement. Yeah. How should they start?
I think even if you both want to go out and buy houses and hold them, I'd probably still try a flip first, because you've got a very quick agreed upon exit strategy. So you can go out and do it. You might, I suppose early on you might be thinking, yes, I'd like to do this with the right team to do it, and you actually start doing it and think, this is not for me. And then you just need a quick get out. Whereas if you've agreed in advance, this is what we'd like to do, we're going to do a flip, we're going to sell it, then it's one and done. You're all set then.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good point actually, because you can be compatible, you can have things you contribute, and you can have the same long-term plan. But actually, once you've done the process, you're like, actually, they're not for me, and you're out. The other thing I'd actually mention also, regardless of whether it's family or not, I would sit down very carefully and write down what you're going to do, and say, you're going to be responsible for this, I'm responsible for this. This is what we're going to do if things go wrong. Write it down, and if you belts and braces, I would send that over to a contract lawyer and then get them to draw a contract up. One thing I'd definitely say don't do is if you've got someone who's questionable, whether it's family or not, again, definitely don't add money to the mix. It just makes any problem, it makes it worse. So find the right person, then add money to it.
And definitely don't start out as though you are going to be working together for 30-40 years. If you go ahead, set up a limited company, work out your pension plan based on all of that, as we've known people to do, and then you decide after one that property is not for you, you've got a lot of unwinding to do before you've even really set out. So just one, do a flip and see where it goes from there.
So the second question is, what records do you need to keep and how?
Well, do you want to take?
Well, essentially, I would say, I'm not really an admin person, but my big picture view would say, imagine a Venn diagram, two overlapping circles. You've got records for the business that the business needs, that you need, the lettings agent need, your tenants need, and you've got records that are more for the financial aspect of your business that HMRC may need. You need for your finance, or like you mentioned that in a second. One thing I would say right at the beginning though is only start keeping records of things you need that are pertinent and relevant. Not everything needs to be recorded, so don't make your job more complicated than it is. And also remember, you should start recording things right from the beginning. So when you go on viewing, for instance, I know you mentioned about mileage in a second, but if you go on a viewing and you get a property inspection form, which I've mentioned before, you can click on the screen, you see the iCard. I've talked about how to inspect a property. That would be a kind of record that the business needs, I would need for me, not related to finance. But let's just talk about the financial component for a second. I know you've got lots of spreadsheets and stuff, and so do you want to talk about what you do?
Yeah. So the financial side, probably as you'll know, covers income and expenses really. So rental statements for that, invoices, expenses, all that kind of thing. And then I'll tend to record it down in our spreadsheets. And then that rolls forward. So I have a spreadsheet for each of us. We do our own, we do separate tax returns. We then have an overview of business expenditure, income and expenditure, which covers things like your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and a tab that I'm very pleased with, which is our investor tab. You quite like that one as well.
Yeah, it's good. It's very helpful. But really recognised, very quick.
So a quick glance for that one, because our investors tend to roll forward their money. We can actually split it between projects. So because it's never exactly the same amount between each project, so you can see at a quick glance what's in each hand.
Well, some investors do, some investors don't. But,
yes.
But the point is, we can have a snapshot of where the money is that we have borrowed and our own money in how is it being deployed in various projects we've got on the go at the moment.
Yeah. And then when you've actually recorded all the stuff, you can then roll it forward and do it as part of your forecasting, which is also very useful. You know whether you can buy a house here or you need to borrow some money here, or that sort of thing really. One thing I would say, I know you mentioned the mileage, is I'm an accountant, and that's one of the things that we always found, is that nobody seems to tell you to record your mileage until the end of your accounts, when can we have your mileage records please? And it's very difficult, especially when you're doing property viewings and you're going to lots of different places all the time, to remember where you've been on each day, because I know on some days you can go and view sort of 10 properties probably. So remembering all of those and keeping a track of it is very difficult in hindsight, but it does add up to quite a bit of money.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds in mileage costs is not unusual.
Yeah.
And if you end of the year, like wherever you travel and you miss that off and it's not tax deductible, you then pay more tax you need to. We're all for paying the right amount of tax though, let's be very clear on that, but
don't pay more than you need to.
you need to be precise. That's the thing, be accurate and precise, be truthful. And how is essentially we use Excel. I mean, will we still be using Excel when we get to 40 or 50 properties? Then perhaps not, but
it works for now.
It definitely works for now, and it will work for you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus, and so on. So systemize and organize. The third question we had was, what are the 3 most frustrating things you have come across as a property investor so far?
I would say probably how long it takes. I'm the type of person who likes to just buy a property straight away. And
how long what takes? Buying?
The whole process. Because you were out there sort of viewing for months and months before we found our first one.
Then we found 2 at once.
Yeah, it picks up the pace, doesn't it, quite quickly. But yeah, I was ready. In fact, that's the compatibility thing again, isn't it? You are very much a slow plodder, like you say, and I'd like to do things a bit faster. So we sort of balance each other out, meet in the middle, and it's worked really well so far. But yeah, that's probably been one of the most frustrating things, when you're sort of raring to go. You feel like you know everything. You don't, but you feel like you know everything, and you just can't find a property to buy. You're dependent on vendors, basically. That's quite frustrating.
And that actually, by the way, ties into another question we had, which we haven't actually included separately, but it's included in that. We had a Zoom chat with a guy this week, and I'm saying I've viewed economic houses and I can't find a deal. Where am I getting stuck? And we talked about some things you could try, and it's not going to happen overnight. Essentially, think 1%, 100 inquiries, whether that's viewings or phone calls, you'll end up buying 1. That's almost certainly going to be your KPI. It's going to be your results. So don't be disheartened.
A lot in your first ones.
Yeah, and the early days are really quite demoralising. They're the hardest because you know the least, and you've got, and you're mostly enthusiastic, so there's a tension there. But lots of people drop out at that stage.
Yeah.
They're like, there's no deals, there's no opportunity. If they're resilient, they'll persevere, they'll go through.
That's quite a long first one.
There is, yeah.
I suppose my second one, can't think of the third, is probably dealing with professionals, so lettings agents, for example. Now, obviously the question is like, what do we find most frustrating? Some of the lettings agents are absolutely brilliant. Occasionally, like with everything, you do get some bad ones. So we have had one where we've had a tenant changeover and we've been charged twice for the setup fee despite not supposed to be charged for the setup fee at all. And then we've had to chase it through. It's been us that's identified it and gotten it back. So that was quite frustrating because we are paying them to do that.
One definitely comes to mind because of recent experience. If you've watched any of this channel before, you know we've got this problem property, and I would say contractors not agreeing to the contract. You have an agreement, you come to it, you have a very verbal agreement, flush it out, this is what we need, this is the time frame, this much money, this much work, time, quality and cost, and you have an agreement, and then you put that into a contract, and then the contract's broken, and then you've got to go through the process of rectifying things. That's challenging. Again, we've got people who are absolutely amazing. We worked repeatedly. You know, hat tips to them. Tremendous guys. Reliable. Pick up the phone, chat. You know, do a good job. If things go wrong, they sort things out. You know, they're great. So the problematic parts are the people that aren't so honouring of their commitments. The other thing I would say would be, between us and we'll have three, would be, I say problematic tenants. So we say that the property should be returned to us at the end of a tenancy in the condition it was presented to the tenant at the beginning, very clearly in the AST. And what we also try to do, when we notice that a tenant needs to move on, we will write to them via the letting agent. We'll actually give the email, and they can pass it on, or they can edit it themselves and then pass it on. And we will say, please, lovely working with you. I hope you had a nice time in your home with us for the last X number of years. Please remember, in agreement with the AST you signed at the beginning, there are just a few things that tend to trip people up. Please can you just make sure the house is cleaned, please can make sure the decoration is in order, please can make sure the gardens are trimmed, please can make sure the waste bins are emptied, ready for the next person to take in, just like you found it when we gave it to you. And then invariably, I don't think we've ever had an end of tenancy where the house has been given back to us in the way that was agreed. And it's not really a problem because we just come down to the deposit. The deposit's there for that very reason. Yeah, it's registered. On the other hand, though, again, this is all the negatives, but on the other hand, we have got tenants that have been there for years and they are just wonderful. Just wonderful. And I've been around to houses where we would like to refinance. We've had it for a while, and this one tenant said to us, at some point in between, he said, "Can we paint the fence?" And I said, "Sure." You know, what sort of colour are you thinking? Thinking not bright pink. And she said, "Oh, just a grey." And I popped round some months later, and I saw the garden. And I was like, "Well, that looks absolutely beautiful." It's just like, almost like a show home. You'd think it was her house, which is exactly what we want, our house, your home. So problematic tenants that don't keep to them. So they are our three most frustrating things that we have come across as property investors. So thank you so much for sending your questions in. If you've got questions, I'm sure we'll do this later date, another one. Sit and chat. So if you've got questions, feel free to, the Instagram link is in the descriptions below. You can always click on that and just drop me a message. But thank you ever so much for those who contributed. My name's Josh, this is Rebecca. Thank you ever so much for your support, we really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you